Hi everyone, welcome back to my lab and today's video where I'm going to finally be demoing the Wayne Goss, the collector's edition brushes for you. I did recently share an unboxing video and close-ups and first impressions and also a short of what the brushes look like after they have been washed and fully bloomed. And in today's video, I will be demoing those and creating this eye look, which I created with the brand new Adept Cosmetics, and this is the brand new Minka palette. Minka was a palette that was in their collection before, but they have modified some of the textures and they now changed the packaging as well as added brand new shades. Here is what the palette looks like. It is so beautiful. The packaging resembles Natasha Denona packaging now, and it has these little holes in the back so you can pop up the shades if you're one that likes to create your own palette. That's an option for you. My only complaint with the packaging is that the mirror doesn't really stand up on its own. If I set it down, it just kind of falls over. That's just something I noticed while I was using the palette. Other than that, it's absolutely beautiful. You have the name on the mirror and you have the brand name on the outside here. It kind of reminds me of that Natasha Denona packaging. It retails for $79. I'm not affiliated with the brand, so I bought it myself. I typically use the code RADAR10. That's Jamie's code from Makeup on Your Radar 2, since I rely on her Instagram account to find out about all these new releases. I'll be sharing a few goodies here and there as well that I've picked up recently. If that sounds good to you, then give this video a big thumbs up. Consider subscribing to my channel if you'd like to see me again on your feed, and let's go ahead and get into it. I wanted to focus most of the video on the palette and the new brushes. So since I didn't have any face brushes to use, I went ahead and I put on my foundation. For a primer, I used the Victoria Beckham Beauty primer, and over top I used the Dior foundation stick. I picked mine up in the shade 2N, and honestly I'm not loving it. I don't love the way it looks on my skin. I can see every single pore, even though usually I can't see pores. I don't know what that's all about. And not only that, it's so fragranced and in a floral way that I'm not loving it. I'm starting out with my Rare Beauty eyeshadow primer. And I'm going to blend that in with the Wayne Goss number 5, just because I didn't really think that this was going to be a brush I would use very much, especially on my eyes, since my eyes are so small. Here are the beautiful shades in the eyeshadow palette. I think I want to do something pink, which is unusual for me. I don't usually like pink eyeshadow. So I'm starting out with the Goss 06 brush, and this is one of the ones that I mentioned in my shorts that it bloomed really nicely and it really lost a lot of that pointy nature that it had. It really opened up really well, which I appreciate. I'm going to take the same brush and I'm going to start with the shade Ilana, and then I'm going to use that a little bit further down. I want this to stay in the pink realm and not really go towards the purple. So I'm going to deepen this out with the shade Ariana. And I already see I kind of picked up a lot of product here. A lot of product. This is the Wayne Goss number 8 brush. And this is one of the ones that I mentioned it bloomed a little bit too much for my liking. You can see how much space it covers on my eye. So it's really difficult for me to be precise with it. And I also clearly went in with quite the heavy hand. If you have defined crease, I can see how this would just go right into your crease and really blend things out nicely. But my eyes don't work that way. Going back into the blending brush, I'm going to go ahead and just diffuse the colors here a bit. Even though I didn't want this to look purple, it kind of already looks purple because of the blending, but Ariana is actually a brown shade. I'm going to go in with a little bit of glitter primer since the shimmers in the original Minka palette were a little bit thick and chunky, so I don't want to take any risks. So I'm going to go ahead and use this eyeshadow base. Now, even though these brushes are safe to use with cream products, no way do I want to gunk up natural hair brushes with glitter glue. So I'm using a synthetic brush for that process. And this is the BK Beauty A505. I'm using the Goss number 10, and it picked up so beautifully on the brush, the shade Maya, which is a very, very glittery shade. I'm going ahead and depositing the color on the center part of my lid. And I'm not being too precious with this. I don't want it to look like a cut crease style look. And now with one of my favorite brushes, I'm going to take the shade Eliza and I'm going to apply that on the inner corner. It's looking a little bit more gold than pink, which is interesting because in the palette, it looks very pink. And I'm gonna go ahead and blend the two colors together. This is such a pretty palette, oh my goodness. I'm not having any issues with fallout, which is shocking. I mean, obviously I used eyeshadow base and a glitter primer, but these are very, very glittery eyeshadows. And then also for the darker color that I have on my lid, you saw how I really overloaded my brush. So that's a really good sign for the brushes and for the palette. I'm going to take the Goss number 7 brush and a little bit more of that Ariana shade, and I'm just going to deepen out the outer corner and just lay that over the shimmery shade a little bit to get a nice blend. Now I'll finish up the other eye off camera, but I really like the way it's looking so far. Okay, so we're somewhat even now, and I'm going to go ahead and apply some concealer and color corrector. I'm going to go with the Sarah Creole and Cali Ray. Sarah Creole is another thing that I really haven't been loving. It's really dry on my under eyes. So today I did make sure to moisturize really, really well. I use the MAC Fast Response Eye Cream, which I really like because it doesn't burn my eyes. It's really hydrating. It has caffeine. I really like that eye cream. So we'll see if that helps any. I noticed that this was getting a lot of hype on social media, but you know, I don't know if it's just mine, but this is really, really hard to open. And I know that they're a brand that's focused on like upcycling and things like that. So maybe that's why the cap has like these little grippy textures. But man, it's hard to open. I probably should have done this before I started filming, but here we are. And I'm going to try to blend that in with the number 3 brush. It's kind of a bigger brush. I probably should have done this before I started my eye makeup, but here we are. It's a nice shape. It gives you that fingertip kind of effect. I don't know what company it was, if it was Shiseido or something like that, where they came out with a brush called like the fingertip brush. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but it was shaped pretty much like this. Blended the product in really nicely. I have a few glitter specks here. Nothing too bad, nothing that's bothering me. So as you saw, that was just a tiny, tiny bit of the color corrector. And I'm gonna go in with the concealer, which has a peachy tone, so it kind of helps color correct as well. And I'm gonna put it a little bit further down, like here where I have these eye bags, and see if that helps. And I'm gonna try not to blend it too far up, because for whatever reason, every time I've tried this concealer, it has looked really, really dry. I know it's supposed to be for mature skin. I'm gonna be 47 next month, so I think it's for my age group, but so far I have to say it's really dry. I'm gonna let it sit there just for a few minutes before I blend it out. Maybe I put it on a little bit too much. I don't know. I'm still experimenting with it. So I'm just going to lightly tap with the same brush so that I don't move the product too much. And hopefully this yields a good result. As I'm blending it out, I'm seeing like I'm able to stretch it pretty far. I'm all the way up my temple now. So maybe I am just applying a little bit too much. And as you can see, with the brush, I'm having difficulty getting into my inner corner where my eyes are kind of like a little bit more deep set. So I'm just gonna stretch this down. I already feel like my under eyes are looking dry. This isn't really about the concealer, but I figure I'd mention it since it's something that has gotten quite a bit of attention. And it's really pricey too, super pricey. I feel like the color that I got is good. Let me see. So my shade was 3.0, And then in the Cali Ray, I chose the shade Golden Hour. I know that they just released new shades. I'm gonna go ahead and use one of the pencil brushes to blend out the inner corner. This one is the number 11. This is the one that's blended with goat hair. And I'm just lightly blending out that inner corner where the other brush was just a little too thick to reach into. As I've been sitting for a while, the foundation is starting to look better. I do feel that with the warmth of my skin, it sinks in a little bit more, but I still don't love it. That fragrance is serious. And I'm not usually sensitive to fragrance, but I mean, generally speaking, my under eyes look okay, at least right now. But then when I powder it, I'm going to use my Pat McGrath powder. And I will go ahead and use the number 4 brush from Wayne Goss to powder underneath the eyes. I hadn't thought about using it in this way, and now I think that it might actually be good. I'm trying to pick up the powder as evenly as possible and shaking it off the brush, just because I don't want to over powder and then end up with that cakey mess, which is what I've gotten almost every time before. It's a very nice size for powdering underneath the eyes, actually. So far, so good. We'll see how it holds up. Let's go ahead and finish up the eyeshadow. I don't want to do anything too crazy underneath the eyes, but I do want to bring the brown back. It totally looks like I used the shade Maria, which I did not. But that's, an artifact of the other colors I paired with it. So I'm going to go into the shade Ariana again, and I picked up just a tiny little bit. And this one is the number 12 brush. It's very gentle on the under eye area, which I really appreciate. This one is blended squirrel with synthetic. It's picking up the powder so well. I kind of overdid it right there. Who knew I was going to end up with such a dramatic look? I'm still not seeing the color as brown. I mean, it's a very deep color, but we have one final eye brush to play with, and this one is the number 9. I'm having that struggle I mentioned in the first video where I have to flip it all the way around to figure out what the actual number is. It's picking up the powder beautifully, honestly. Like, this is just tapping into the palette just ever so lightly. So I'm going to go ahead and use this one to blend out that lower lash line a little bit. The nice thing about going so low with the lower lash line is that you kind of disguise those eye bags. But honestly, I don't know if you can see, but I'm already seeing the creasing. So maybe I'm just using too much concealer. I have to play with that one more. I've put it on maybe like 3 times so far, and yeah. I know it's supposed to be like a foundation too. I don't know about an all over face product so tiny in terms of the amount that you get. I don't think it would last very long, but it does stretch very nicely, so who knows. This brush is so nice on the under eye because it's so soft. It's one of the things I like best about squirrel hair. Like, it's barely moving my lower lid, like barely. And that's if I put more pressure on it. I'm just blending it out with the shade Toya, which is making it look more purple, but whatever, here we are. I feel like this is screaming for one of my Victoria Beckham eyeliners. I'm using the shade Cocoa. No, still doesn't make it look brown. Cocoa's a beautiful brown shade. My daughter received the Milk mascara. This is the Kush High Roll mascara. She received it in gratis, so I'm going to go ahead and give it a try. She got a couple of them, and so she passed this one on to me. I like that it has a plastic bristle wand. I like the separation, I don't feel I'm getting much lengthening. I really like the separation though. So there you have the mascara applied. Again, this isn't really about the mascara, but I've been kind of disappointed with the Tower, is it Tower 28? The Make Waves mascara? I don't know, it didn't work for me. It didn't really work for me. I don't feel I was able to even, I got nothing. I got nothing from that mascara, which is strange because normally I like tubing mascaras. I'm gonna go ahead and put on the rest of my face products like contour, bronzer, that kind of thing, and pick out a lip color. I will demo the last two brushes with blush and highlight. I'm back because I changed my mind. I started using the Dior contour stick. I tolerate this one more than the foundation because obviously you don't have to put it all over your face. But I applied the contour by using the Goss number 2 brush, and I essentially just like dabbed and then I applied, and you can see that it's firm enough to pick up a stick product straight from the stick, no warming it up, and applying to the face. So I figured, let me just use the brushes in as many ways as I can, and I may as well share it. So let's go ahead and use brush number 1 on the YSL bronzer. Mine is in the shade, I think it's number 2. I'll leave all the products I used in the description box down below. So I am just going to go ahead and I'm kind of tapping both sides of the brush like this. Pick up the product. And I think I'm going to start up here. I actually like the size of the brush because my forehead isn't really that big. And if I apply with a bronzer brush that's too big, then sometimes I can get really bad bronzer helmet where it goes, you know, just way too low. It's a really nice application and I'm able to get into the hairline. It's so soft and you can really use the brush any which way. I know a lot of people are loving that Refer brush that was for holiday. I have it too, I love it too. And they're using it kind of like this to apply bronzer. You can do that with one side of this brush. Right, just applying in this direction. I always like to swirl a little bit, especially when my foundation is a little more dry. This one is definitely way more dry than my usual foundation because I usually prefer dewier finishes, but this is definitely not that. I did apply a lip combination. I used one of Ali Glein's lipsticks. I think I have the shade Daisy. Again, I'll link everything I used down below. I didn't want to focus on too many products today. So pretty. This is more of a matte bronzer, but it's so pretty and it diffuses so nicely. I really like this one. I definitely see what all the hype was about with regard to this bronzer. I'm just wiping my brush on a microfiber cloth so that I can use this one for blush as well. One nice thing about these blended bristle types is that you can use it for those hybrid formulas, which this Gucci highlighter is a perfect example. So I'm going to go ahead and swirl my brush. This one, I will admit, I'm pressing a little bit more into the pan. So this one, I have to say, it's a little bit too flexible to pick up a hybrid gel like this one. What I typically use for this is like the Sonia G mini sheer buffer is what I used for it in the past. So I'm going to apply on the other side to compare. I believe that the Sonia G picks up this product a little bit better because it's more densely packed. Once you pass the longer fibers and you get into the body of the brush, see, you're able to pick up the product a little bit better. So for this specific product, I wouldn't recommend using the Goss brush, but if you have a powder highlight, I think it would pick up very well. This was kind of like the one surprise that I noticed it wasn't really picking up. Makes a big difference. The firmness of these bristles really do a better job at picking that up. So instead, I'm going to go ahead and apply my blush with the Wayne Goss number 2. And this is picking up really well. This is the Gucci blush. This one is the shade number 5, Rosy Beige. Very nice. that was basically all the brushes. I used them almost exclusively to create the eye look. The only two brushes I introduced were the Angie Hot and Flashy A505 and then the Sonia G Mini Sheer Buffer. And then also to apply my foundation, I used the Sephora Collection number 64 brush. So I'm gonna go ahead, fix my hair, and I will be back to share my final thoughts. Hopefully you enjoyed the demonstration video. I'm loving the brushes so much. I've had several days to play with them now, and I really love them all. I think that they all have their own purposes. Today, I used the number 4 brush, which I thought originally that it was going to be a little bit too big for my face. I used it for setting the under eye, and it worked great because you can really control the amount of product that you pick up. I have really dry under eyes, and so I can't really overload on powder there. So that was a really nice surprise. Another really nice surprise, which I shared in the demo, was the Blender number 6 brush, because it bloomed to be really domed, and that's the preferred shape that I like to use for my eyes. You see my eyes are super hooded. I've got no crease. It's completely folded over, so this is a very nice brush. Even the other blending brush, the number 7, it bloomed a little bit, so it opened up a little bit more in a way that I can use it more, but it still does have a little bit of a point, so those of you that have a natural crease, you're going to love this brush. I would say probably the ones that I will use the least are going to be brush number 5. Probably I'll pick this up for like nose contour or maybe blending out my eyeshadow base. That's how I used it today, because it's just a little bit too big for the size of my eyelids. So that one is probably one of my least favorites. I would say another one. Probably the other one is the number 8 brush because it bloomed quite a bit as well, but I was able to use it to apply shadow to the outer V and diffuse it out despite the fact that I loaded on quite a lot of products. So overall, I have to say the brushes are really high quality. After washing and when applying, I encountered maybe 1 or 2 hairs that were shedding, but nothing crazy. Usually natural hair brushes, the first time you wash them and use them, you'll have, 1 or 2 straight hairs that will come loose. And these are really nice so far. So if you're wondering about the quality, I think they're great. I think it's also great that they're offered individually, so that way you can pick your favorites. And hopefully my videos helped you pick out what those favorites might be. With regard to the eyeshadow palette, what a beauty, right? Obviously I didn't use all the shades. I do have to say that even though I was aiming for a little bit more of a neutral crease, it did kind of turn out purple. And I was using that shade right there, which I was hoping would make it a little bit more neutral. But I guess since I was blending out with the more mauvey shades, it just pulled purple, especially with the lid colors being so pink. I used Maya and Eliza. Both of them picked up on my Wayne Goss brush really well, which is also really nice. Back to the brushes, that was the number 10 brush. Picked up the shimmers so well, and I was able to pack them down. I did use a glitter glue, of course, but I was able to lay them down and not have any fallout since I'd already done my foundation. Very nice palette, not for the faint of heart probably. There are more neutral colors here, but because they're so shimmery and so sparkly, I think that you're going to get a more dramatic look regardless, like the one that I have today. But I think it's beautiful, and I think that it would be a really nice special occasion palette. I really like it. Like I mentioned, my only complaint is that the mirror is so heavy and it kind of falls over. I'm using a new camera to film. I'm getting used to it, so I have like a tiny little viewfinder below it and then another one next to me. So I apologize if I wasn't looking directly at the lens, but I'm gonna get used to it. I'm trying to use it to film in 4K, so let me know if my video quality is any better. I'm also using a different mic. So I've been away from YouTube. It's been taking me a while to relearn how to edit and all of those things, but I'm looking forward to sharing a lot more content moving forward. If you did enjoy this one, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you again very soon on my next one. Bye-bye.